Hey everybody, do a little test driving on old Powerglide bronze. We got it all wrapped up, top's working great, interior's all in here, smelling a whole lot better, floor pans are in place, my feet aren't falling through the floor, water pump's doing great, brakes feel phenomenal. So a lot of steps completed, but went for my drive here and the transmission seems to malfunction. When I first test drove this car starting the project, it had a 1-2 shift, nice and good, like it should, about the right speed, but now it just holds on to first gear and just keeps on trucking. Not the end of the world, because I know the transmission works, but how do you diagnose? What do you do? What's the next step? Well, it does eventually shift second gear when you get up to speed and let off the gas. That tells me that maybe that the vacuum modulator is malfunctioning. Pretty easy system to diagnose. The vacuum modulator kind of works like the computer on this whole car. It tells the transmission how much of a load or how hard you're accelerating, and it holds on to the gear a little bit longer. This is the same modulator style pretty much any General Motors transmission of this era, TH Turbo 350, Turbo 400, Powerglide transmissions, even some of the newer stuff. If it has a vacuum line or vacuum diaphragm going to it, well, it actually tells the transmission how much of an engine load. So zero engine vacuum, low number, it will actually think that the transmission thinks you're under heavy engine load or hard acceleration, so it's going to delay shifting. So typically what happens is we've got a loss of vacuum signal down to the vacuum modulator, or the modulator itself has failed. And in some cases, the diaphragm fails and it sucks transmission fluid up into the carburetor like a straw, but you have the cool smoke screen then. But I don't have that going on, so I'm thinking I need to test the vacuum diaphragm, check my vacuum supply to the modulator, and then determine what needs to be done. So that's what we're going to do this time around. Figure out why the old LeBrons this ain't shifting no more. So let's dig into it. Well, anyway, step one here is going to get the hood opened up. The other thing is, if you've got one of these little doohickeys here, checking vacuum or apply vacuum to things, well, that's probably the best way to test the system. If you don't have one of these, you can pull the vacuum hose off with the engine running and see if you got a good signal, but that's probably not the best method, but it was better than nothing, so we can give that a shot. But first, we're going to pop the hood open here. I'll show you where to look. All right, step one, find the vacuum line that feeds the transmission modulator. Typically, it's a steel line running down the back. So here's our line, rubber hose tied to the front of the carburetor, which should be manifold vacuum. So as soon as I start the car, I should have full manifold vacuum supplying down to the vacuum modulator. So it is hooked to the base of the carburetor. So just in case yours didn't shift prior to, then that's the first thing I would check. Make sure you have a good manifold vacuum source. So what I'd like to do next, we'll get this pulled off here somewhere. But the other thing is, looking at these splices, that's not ideal. Obviously, this is a newer splice, but the less splices, less chance for a failure. That's why I think they use a steel line, small rubber hose to the vacuum modulator, and only a small loop to the carburetor. So one of these hoses might be our malfunction, but the way to test it, I'm going to pull it off here at the carburetor. I'll hook the little vacuum pump up to it and see what we can get. Anyway, yeah, that's not a good sign. It should be going about 15, 18 right now. I'm not getting anywhere. So I have somewhere between the carburetor and down there a massive leak, allowing it not to pull that diaphragm to shift the valve to allow it to shift sooner. So I think we've already found our problem. We've got a leak somewhere, or a faulty diaphragm on the vacuum modulator itself. Okay. Now the vacuum modulator, well, it's going to be tough to get in here. All right. Well, there's the vacuum line that goes to it. And there's the vacuum modulator, but I'm kind of seeing something there that tells me I've already found the problem. The vacuum hose should be on the vacuum modulator, so I'm going to guess the guy who, put the floorboards in probably knocked that loose when we had the car all torn apart. So typically, in every scenario, we are our own worst enemy. So let me reach up in there and put that back on. We may have already solved the problem, but that's going to be a little too easy, but we'll take it this time. Okay, now we got the vacuum line hooked back on the modulator. Now if I were to pull my little handle here, I should get some kind of a change in my reading. Yeah, much better. Yeah, of course, now I just knocked it loose, but You get the idea. It was starting to pull it down like it's supposed to. So I think the real problem was, you would call it, we are our own worst enemies. Well, I probably knocked that loose putting the floor pans in. So let's hook that back up to the engine. I bet you the transmission's going to shift fine now. Well, I ended up having to change the vacuum tee because I broke it. It was kind of brittle, probably. Who knows how long it's been on it. But the other thing I thought was kind of cool, check this out, Motorcraft. I'm not quite sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but my buddy Chad, I think that's absolutely hilarious. Probably a Motorcraft part on a Pontiac to make it go, but we're going to make it go with this. I'm going to start it up and let it run, but I almost certainly got the problem fixed. But long story short, normally it's not that easy, but I'm going to take the win this time around. But the idea of this video was to educate you how a vacuum modulator work. Normally, I've had some of these steel lines break over time. They're brittle, they're rust, they snap in half. I had that happen on my orange GTO at stop shifting. So this is a common problem, super easy to diagnose. Typically, it's just the vacuum line. Every once in a while, I have a faulty vacuum modulator, but this time, it was just as simple as plugging it probably underneath the car back in and making it go again. But Motorcraft parts, I guess you use this on Pontiacs too sometimes. Let's go for a drive, see what it does. Shift again, so I think we got our problem solved. Now back to the garage. I have to say it was one of the first enjoyable test drives I've had in this car. Driving without seats, did that a couple times. Drove with the transmission not shifting, not a whole lot of fun. Drove with the floorboards falling out of the car, and then that was kind of an interesting set. But interior's back in it, shifted nice again, so getting that one step closer to being gone. And one of those things, I got my normal favorite drink. If you look really carefully here at the logo there, they must be catching on that I like Firebirds, because my favorite drink, Orange Mountain Dew, well, now they've actually got a Firebird on the badge here, on the labeling. So I guess I gotta say Mountain Dew support the old Vinyl Village garage, maybe. Yeah, probably not, but that was kind of fun. Anyway, nonetheless, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to get on to the next project, but of course, appreciate you following us on this journey. If you see anything you like or want to see some more of this car, any kind of builds on a first-gen F-body, well, I've got plenty more projects and things going, so let me know if I think I can do a video on or let you get you involved in something maybe you have a question on. So appreciate you following us, and I'm going to get the heck out of here, and we'll see you next time.